Hey everybody, what is up and welcome back to the channel, and we got some sad news in the rock and metal world. So Megadeth, Dave Mustaine and Megadeth have announced that they're putting out one more album and then they're going on their farewell tour, so they're going to end their career, which is kind of crazy. It's like all these things are happening. You know, we lost Ozzy Osbourne, and now Megadeth is going to be retiring. But it's understandable as well. They've had a very long and illustrious career. Great metal band out there. I mean, Megadeth, came, together after, Dave Mustaine either left, kicked out, however you want to learn, was no longer a part of Metallica anymore, and he formed Megadeth, turned it into this huge monster, an amazing band, and we're very thankful for all the music we got from Megadeth, and the new album that's coming as well, because at least we're going to get one more good, solid album out of Megadeth. But it's kind of sad, I grew up in the 80s, I was a teenager in the 80s, I remember when Metallica first came out, Megadeth first came out, and all that stuff, when they all came out and were really starting up and just taking off and running, and they just took the world by storm. And so it's very much an end of an era to see a band like Megadeth stepping off the stage and going to do their final farewell tour. But in the same aspect, Dave Mustaine said that he wants to go out on top, and they are really at the top of their game. They're performing very well, and why not? Why not do one last tour and knock it out of the park, farewell tour, and step off that stage on a high note where you're at the top of your game, you're doing the best you can, and walk away. Kiss did their farewell tour, we all know, but that farewell tour turned into, instead of a year tour, it turned into 3 years or whatever, and it just drug on and on and on, and by the time they ended, everybody's like, are these guys ever going to stop? And nobody wants to do that. So Kiss was another band. Kiss was a huge influence on my life, and to see them finally step off the stage, that was a bittersweet moment for me as well. But Megadeth's the same way. I grew up with Megadeth. I grew up with that music, and to see them finally retiring, it's just bittersweet because we're getting older, and those guys are getting older, and they can only be up there doing this for so long. And I think Dave is right when he says, go out on a high, go out while you're still playing. Don't drag it on to where you're just a has-been and you're like butchering the music that everybody used to love in the end. Go out on that high note, go out on top, and then retire and walk away. And he can go spend time the rest of his life with his family, and I'm sure he'll do collaborations. I'm sure he'll show up, hopefully playing with some people here and there, just, like a cameo or whatever. But, it's bittersweet for all of us in the metal community that love Megadeth and love that kind of music, to see a band like them, such a great band like that, finally taking their final bow. So if you guys get a chance, definitely try to get out there and see those shows and support them one last time, and just show them how much that music is meant to all of us, and how much they mean to you, as far as artists and stuff goes. Because bands like that, bands like Megadeth and Metallica and Kiss and bands like that, we're not going to see bands like that anymore. We're not going to see those great bands like that anymore. Music industry has taken such a huge change in how it goes that bands like that, we're not going to see that kind of music anymore, and that kind of talent in the music industry anymore, because everything's getting AI'd and everything, and people are using all kinds of computer systems, and they're not taking the time to actually learn how to play instruments and become very proficient with those things anymore. Everything's done by computers now. And so I think the music industry is literally going downhill and going into the toilet. That's my personal opinion. And these great bands like Megadeth and stuff, it's totally the end of an era as each one of these bands starts to come to the end of their careers. It's definitely an end of the era, and there's not a whole lot of bands that are really stepping up to the plate. There's a couple bands out there, like I love The Warning. I love the Three Sisters from Monterrey, Mexico, The Warning. They're freaking phenomenal. They're one of the few bands that are still keeping that real, true rock and roll spirit going. But it's very hard to find these days. Show your love for Megadeth. Put your comments down below. I always liked Megadeth. I always enjoyed their music. I think they were a great band, and it's just an end of an era to see it coming to an end. But Dave, if you're going out on top, man, go out on top. Knock this album out of the park. Knock your last tour out of the park, and just show them how it's done. That's all I can say. So that's all I got for you guys. Just want to put a little bit of music news out there. It's bittersweet for me as somebody that grew up when they first came out and watched them from the infancy all the way up to where they are now. It's a very bittersweet thing for guys that are in my age group now, because we grew up with that stuff. And so, but it's good too, because he needs to take time to reflect and be able to do stuff with his family as well, and enjoy some of that time as well, because they spent so much time, decades, and we're talking 40 years plus of Megadeth. I mean, and all you can say is thank you for all the great music, and that's what I'm gonna say. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to Megadeth and for Dave Mustaine and them for keeping that alive and putting out some amazing music that we all love. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave your comments down below, questions or whatever, and we will see you guys on the next video.